Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like with the cat with the laser pointer, it's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Today is Friday, October 24th, 2025. I am your temporary guest host, Gordon McCormick, Ghost of Base Patrick Henry, and joined by the one and only Chris Paul. Chris, how are you today?
The horrors persist, buddy.
Love to hear it. Love to see you back in the black as well. You're back in black.
In the void?
You were in white last week, so.
Oh yeah, for GBPH. Yeah, I was out of town. I try not to ever be out of town, but I had to be, so.
It happens.
Yeah, but here I am back in the void.
All right. Well, let's get a shout out to a sponsor before we get rolling. And today we will start with Perplexity AI, cut from Comet. Let me ask you something. How much time do you spend every day on the web browser? How much time do you spend clicking around online, searching, scrolling, typing endless tabs? It's a lot, right? Well, there's a new AI web browser from Perplexity called Comet that is completely changing the way you are able to interact with your browser. Using Comet feels like having a personal assistant living in your web browser that can actually do things for you across the internet. Yes, do things, not just give you answers. You can ask Comet to handle tasks for you, and it literally clicks, types, searches, and scrolls just like you would to get things done for you in the background while you go about your day. Comet can shop for you, make reservations, book travel, summarize articles or videos, send emails, schedule meetings, and a lot more to make your life easier. Let me show you how it works. I don't have my Comet browser up and ready, but I've seen CanCon do it, and it is very cool. Pretty cool, right?
You can like write in requests, and it is able to like automate tasks and go through things. So you can, if you are one of those high productivity people who wants to be getting a bunch of things done at once, as I am sometimes, I'm sure you are as well. It just, it'll just handle tasks that you would normally have to be watching over something to do. Well, I mean, even in the age of like the large language model AIs and stuff, you'd still have to be going through it step by step, giving it command after command after command. This thing is able to complete task after task after task. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So download Perplexity's new AI web browser Comet by heading to pplx.ai/Badlands and let your browser work for you. Plus, right now you can download Comet. You get a month of Rumble Premium for free. That's pplx.ai/Badlands. Go now and take back your time online.
Yeah, I actually saw Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO of Rumble, the other day talking on Truth Social about how I guess they're going to package Perplexity AI and Rumble Premium together for like $19.99. And usually Perplexity AI on its own is that price for like the minimum paid subscription. And then Rumble Premium is an extra $10 a month. So you save $10 a month. And if you are someone who uses AI and someone who watches Rumble a lot, I feel like that's the way to go.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's Rumble Premium is definitely worth the money. And
just to miss the commercials.
Yeah. Yeah. And Perplexity AI, this comment thing, I'm absolutely going to go look at it after the show today and try to play with it, because that sounds like something that could save me a ton of time, and I need that with three little kids running around. So awesome, man. Well, let's jump into the news. It's funny because like yesterday, CanCon said to me, he's like, yeah, it's been kind of a slow news day. It's been like that for a while. So we can talk about geopolitics a bunch today if you want. And I'm sitting there thinking, I think the reason that it feels like a slow news day for y'all, not necessarily for me, but for y'all, is because the government shut down and we don't have to listen to all like the soap opera and all the drama that is normally generated from the government being up and operating. And I have gotten to the point where I basically ignored domestic political storylines because there's way too much. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
On the geopolitical side, I still can't even like cover everything because there's just too much. But I went back and was like looking for stories, and I'm like, he's right. It is like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel to try to find like domestic storylines, and I think it's because Congress is not technically operating right now.
Yeah, I always go to CNN's front page to see what the normie mainstream is focused on, and I think that gives me a decent read on that. And today, the headline is "The Reagan ad that angered Trump and got him to end Canada talks." So we are supposed to believe that Donald Trump cut off conversation with a sovereign nation over trade, a sovereign nation on our border over trade, because he was upset about a commercial. That's not possible. Therefore, it didn't happen. Therefore, once again, the mainstream media is leading us down a road that no one needs to walk down.
Yeah, that's it's a hilarious storyline. And here I want to. So I have the Reuters article, but so we'll look at the Reuters article. But before we do, there's one thing that I do want to show. I want to go back to this video. This is when Trump was in Egypt delivering the remarks on the peace deal, and all the European leaders got up and like stood behind him. The Pakistani prime minister was behind him because he was going to speak. I think Trump wanted him to speak, but then all of a sudden the European leaders got up behind him, and Trump kept saying, "I don't know why y'all are up here. Like, who told you to stand up here? This is really awkward, but fine, be up here." And then listen to what he says right here.
I met with many of the people in this room, and it all just started coming together. I've known so many of you for so long. You're friends of mine. You're great people. I have a couple I don't like in particular, but I won't tell you who. I have actually a few of them I don't like at all, but you'll never find out who they are. Well, maybe you will, come to think of it. But I have most of you who I like a lot, and I respect a lot. Maybe that's more important. We
look at Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, on the right, like as he's saying all this, like the look on his face.
But
he's like,
and it all just started coming together. I've known so many of you for so long. You're friends of mine. You're great people. I have a couple I don't like in particular, but I won't tell you who. I have actually a few of them I don't like at all, but you'll never find out who they are. Well, maybe you will, come to think of it. But I have most of you who I like a lot, and
maybe you will find out. That's what Mark Carney's like. Okay, yeah. And Carney, of course, as Matt Aird has explained to me in detail, he's like the king of the central bankers. His resume is like, he's worked for the Bank of London. He's run the Central Bank of Canada. So he is like the king of the city of London, like London bankers. And now he's of course the leader of Canada, and him and Trump have had this really tense, like unfriendly relationship ever since Trump and him have come into office.
Yeah. I mean, I think he also might fit under the our boy model. He seems like he was installed. Canada, there are people today like, can we just admit that Canada is our 51st state now? I think we're getting to that point. You just cut off trade negotiations altogether over a commercial. And the funny thing is, when you cut off the trade, well, then you have to find a reason why that happened. So what a funny cover story this is.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so the story is, it says the 1987 radio address by the late former U.S. President Ronald Reagan at the center of a new U.S.-Canada row was a defense of free trade, free but fair trade, in which he explained his decision to put duties on Japanese goods in a trade dispute. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that all trade talks with Canada were terminated following what he called a fraudulent advertisement by the Canadian province of Ontario, in which Reagan was featured speaking negatively about tariffs. Separately, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation issued a statement saying the ad used selective audio and video and misrepresented the address. Reagan's 5-minute statement contains a strong defense of the benefits of free trade while explaining his decision the week before to impose tariffs on Japan due to its inability to enforce their trade agreement with us on electronic devices called semiconductors. We expect our trading partners to live up to their agreements. As I've often said, our commitment to free trade is also a commitment to fair trade, he said. He added that while trade restrictions of any kind were a step he was loath to take, the U.S. had evidenced in the special case of unfair trade practices by Japanese companies. What follows is the lengthy warning of the dangers of trade protectionism used in the Ontario ad, in which Reagan cites how it contributed to the economic misery experienced in the 1930s Great Depression. Wow, that's in the quote from the actual ad is high tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. He said of a spiral that leads to higher prices and less competition. Quote, then the worst happens, markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industry shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
That sounds like a threat, to be honest.
Yes, it does actually sound like a threat. And yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You gotta just consider about the two sides that are battling over the tariff conversation and the trade conversation. It's the global regime in this top-down, centralized, controlled, planned global economy that has to all be working together for it to work at all. You know, when countries, especially major countries, start dropping out of that system, the system collapses. And so they're trying to protect the system while Trump and some of the other leaders we often talk about are trying to lead us out of that top-down, centralized control system. So to present tariffs as this really awful thing is interesting just on its own in that dynamic. But the way they're presenting it, they have seeded for 100 years that what caused World War II was all of these various global economic machinations that were happening in Germany in the 1930s. And they're calling that back all the time. Every time something comes up about racism, racist text messages, the rest of it. Oh, Trump is Hitler, MAGA is Nazis. We've seen this before. We have to do anything we can to stop them. Major figures on that side of social media are like, well, you know, we got to kill these people. It's okay to kill Nazis. It's crazy where they're going, but they've been pushing this for 10 years. And I would hope at some point people would actually recognize it and understand that they just tell the same stories over and over again. And knowing that, we can look back at the stories they were telling then and use those to skip ahead, understand what they're trying to do, and just duck out of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really funny because, well, number one, like that, you're right about that that description. They even said it in the Ontario ad that this is what happened. This is what caused the 1930s Great Depression. Like, never mind the stock market manipulation and how, you know, the financiers and the bankers were screwing around with all that. Like, never mind all that. It was actually these tariffs, these pesky tariffs that William McKinley put in the 1890s. They're the ones that really screwed us over. Never mind the fact that Prescott Bush, George Bush's grandfather, was arrested in 1942 and put in prison for trading with the Enemies Act. He was then pardoned and released, and then went on to form the CIA in 1947 after the signing of the National Security Act. You know, like, never mind that. Like, never mind the fact that he was arrested because he was acting as the go-between between bankers in New York and London and Adolf Hitler. Like, never mind the fact that corporate America was investing millions of dollars in the German economy and building up the Third Reich to what it was. I mean, like, never mind all of that.
Yeah. And then you've got, what is it? 1913, the 16th Amendment was passed in that, window there. Then we get led by the Balfour Declaration into World War I, and we've, the implementation of a federal income tax, then the gold stuff, then you have FDR leading us into the New Deal. So yeah, sure, it was the tariffs that destroyed everything.
Yeah, yeah. And the really funny part about the subjects that are in this deployment, number one, Reagan, a 1987 address. That's the same year that The Art of the Deal was published. And in The Art of the Deal, Trump explicitly says that Ronald Reagan is an extremely overrated president, and he actually had some really strong opinions on that, really strong opinions on how bad of a president Ronald Reagan was, and the only good redeeming quality about him was his hair. That was it.
Well, it seems like Ronald Reagan was worn as a skin suit by George H.W. Bush after the assassination attempt, and then, of course, they kind of gave him the same model as Joe Biden, that he's just not there mentally. So by the time 87 rolled around, who knows what the motivations were?
Yeah. And I've actually gone and been looking lately at a lot of the cabinet, the administration under Reagan, and it is a who's who of neoconservative, Zionist shills. Like Mark Levin. I had no idea Mark Levin was the deputy attorney general under Edwin Meese. Edwin Meese, of course, is credited as the guy who basically gave the promise software to the Israelis, to Mossad, which they then used to infiltrate basically every government in the world and acquire the real blackmail. The Epstein thing, I think, is kind of a cutesy story about honeypots, but I think the real blackmail came from the promise software scandal. But yeah, Edwin Meese was the attorney general who is widely considered the guy that did that, and his deputy attorney general was Mark Levin. That blows my mind. And then the other part of this story is the Japanese element, where in the 80s there are countless clips of Donald Trump on Oprah Winfrey and other talk shows talking about how the Japanese are screwing us over, and how you can't sell anything in Japan, but they're flooding our markets with cheap VCRs and cars.
Yeah, I of course remember all those clips. I got to think it's probably the same dynamics that are playing out now. I mean, that's just the system that is implemented in country after country after country is eventually pushed back against in country after country after country. And then the cycle kind of starts over. And 40 years is plenty of time to see that cycle many times, in all of our quote unquote lived experience. So I think that we're probably just seeing parallel examples right now. And when you see that, you have to, we talk about timelines and stuff. You have to play what we see now back into that history and pull that history into what we're seeing now. And we can totally do that simply by matching patterns and characters and roles and activities, because they're all going to be the same.
Yes. Well said. Well said. So
by the way, back in that Reagan era, Paul Wolfowitz was back there. Richard Pearl was back there. Bill Kristol's dad, Irving, and Norm Podhoretz were starting Commentary Magazine. This was like the rise of the neocons. Bill Casey at the CIA, Robert Kagan, Victoria Nuland's husband. This is like the rise of the neocon era.
Yes. And then Irving Kristol wrote what's considered the autobiography of neoconservatism, and I think it was 1996, 1995, because he is considered the father of neoconservatism. And then his son Bill, who he hires in the 90s, right out of college, is Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson works for Bill Kristol, and he's on CNN and stuff, mocking people for dunking on the Kristols and dunking on neoconservatism, and he's mocking them for doing that. And he's also mocking Pat Buchanan, because Pat Buchanan was fiercely anti-Israel and fiercely anti-Zionism. So it's we're just getting this replay. I mean, it's obviously the roles have changed and things are different now, but it does feel like a massive remake of a movie that was playing 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, and of course, Bill Kristol, I think, was the project for the New American Century with Robert Kagan, right?
Yes.
And so all of that is an outgrowth of Trotsky. These guys are essentially Bolsheviks branded under American conservatism. And because we have this weird two-party, quote unquote, uniparty system, half the country lines up behind these guys as what they believe to be the lesser of two evils. No, it's just the same evil.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It is absolutely the same evil. And what's really interesting about the actuals and what Trump is posting about in his True Social posts is he specifically is talking about the tariffs that were imposed on Canadian steel, aluminum, and automobiles earlier this year, prompting Ottawa to respond in kind. The two sides have been in talks for weeks on a potential deal for the steel and aluminum sectors. And what's interesting about that is steel and aluminum were the two things that were targeted by Trump in the first administration. I actually went back months ago when all this tariff stuff really started to blow up, and I was analyzing what did Trump actually do in the first administration versus what did he say? And he said a lot of things. He threatened a lot of tariffs. He talked about a lot of tariffs, but almost none of those tariffs actually came to fruition. They were all just like negotiating tactics, where then like a trade deal would be negotiated at the final hour. The only tariffs that actually got imposed, it was $34 billion worth of goods, targeted goods on China. And then I think it was a 25% tariff on, I think it was steel, and then 15% on aluminum. So it was aluminum and steel were the only two like blanket tariffs that were issued. Everything else, it was just 34 billion on China. And then there was a lot of threats against Japan and a few others that never actually came to fruition. And yet we got this like explosion in our economic growth in 2019 just from the steel and aluminum tariffs, which I think is very notable. And then if you go back to the 90s and what happened in the fall of the Soviet Union, you talk about Robert Kagan, you talk about Victoria Nuland and all their good work in the Ukraine in the 90s. The aluminum wars of the 1990s, where the Russian government was trying to privatize all of these, former communist companies. And so they were offering these vouchers to the citizens to buy stock in these companies. They were each worth $25. And then the oligarchs came in and offered these people real money, $5 cash or whatever for a $25 voucher, bought up all the vouchers and then used the vouchers to basically buy the ownership stake in these companies. That's how Oleg Deripaska became an oligarch, as well as a lot of these other like former KGB guys. And the main like material was aluminum. And that's why they call it the aluminum wars. So again, it's like all this stuff is connected. And we're talking about Canada. We're not talking about Russia. But when we're talking about the tunnel and the bridge between Alaska and Russia, that's going to have to ostensibly have Canada involved somehow, because Canada is between Alaska and the continental United States. So there does seem to be this weird kind of connection between Russia, Canada, and the U.S. And Mark Carney's kind of at the center of this whole little tiff between Trump and the whole situation.
Yeah, and that's super interesting about the aluminum wars. We were talking the other night about some of the, the privatization, the seizure and privatization, and how you would move from the situation that we've been in, again, with the top-down, centrally controlled global economy, and the partnership really between transnational corporations, the governments of the world that are all kind of just puppet governments of the regime, and then the global governance bodies. The World Economic Forum, if you go on their partners page, I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's really interesting. There's like 1,000, actually, we might as well just pull it up.
Yeah,
there's like 1,000 transnational corporate partners here, banks, energy companies, and the like, and they are all under the World Economic Forum's Code of Conduct. And the Code of Conduct essentially says, and it's obviously much longer than this, and people should go read it for themselves, but the Code of Conduct basically makes it so that all of the partners of the World Economic Forum, whether they're politicians or governments or these corporations, and this is just a blanket cover for their activity, but they all have to align their agendas with the World Economic Forum agenda. And then, of course, they get to access funding pools from these banks and whatever. And so it breaks it down all by letter and I guess one number. But let's just look at the A's. Okay, I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit. Just right here, you can see Amazon, American Heart Association, Abbott Laboratories. And I'm trying to just do the American ones that are going to be familiar names. Accenture, Adobe. Whoa, how did that happen?
Anheuser-Busch, although technically I think that's French.
Anheuser-Busch, huge. Yeah. Anthropic, Apple. I mean, you can just go down the entire list for every one of these letters and see the companies that have made themselves part of the everyday life of just about everyone in the world. And here they are partnered with the World Economic Forum. And so when you look at that, and this is, I've been talking about global communism as what it is we face for 5 years. And this is why. It's because if a government is partnered with these corporations and there is a centralized control system above each part of it, then they don't really have any independence. It's not possible to have a private corporation in that model. And we have a very effective version of that here in the United States. So to move out of that, how do we get out of that? How do we sever these partnerships? Considering that the ownership groups of these organizations are fully aligned with that agenda. Well, something has to be done then, dependent on how much crime they have committed against the country and against the people. If there is justice to be had in this world, and I'm not sure that there is, but if there is, then it has to include that, which means that this more powerful force has to remove those connections and then reorganize that. So then it becomes, what is the fair and proper way to reorganize these things? And, you can just follow that chain. We could have a 3-hour-long conversation just on that alone. But anyhow.
That is interesting. And I wonder, what is the incentive for these companies to be on this list, right? What is the actual, dollars and cents incentive beyond the social incentive of being recognized, the prestige of it? What is the actual economic incentive of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure it's entirely economic. When you get to the top level of global regime organizations, the amount of corruption, the amount of compromise, the history of all the things that individuals and groups of people did to get to that point, it leaves them in a position where their reputation can be destroyed at almost any moment. And when their reputation is destroyed, well, then their business role becomes untenable. The cancel culture works its way on them, and then they are removed. And so you've got the real factors there, like somebody might want more money, but so many of these people are already billionaires. They already have whatever it is they want, and they're able to continue accessing that forever as long as they keep playing the game and allowing themselves to be permanently under control. So I would suggest that that's at play in there as well. But we saw some of this stuff in 2020. We saw how many of the companies went along with the COVID stuff, with the vaccine stuff, the race stuff during George Floyd. What was it called before it was DEI? There was another acronym when we used to talk about all this stuff as social justice and critical race theory. Was it CRT back then?
Critical race theory was definitely one of them. Yeah.
And there were, the ESG thing. That ESG, they always refer to it as environmental, social, and governance. And so they would score all these organizations based on how they comported with the agreed upon agenda of organizations like the World Economic Forum. And then they would just deploy these throughout their company. And if you ever go to a Starbucks now, you can kind of still see the results. It's like, why are these baristas wearing masks? How come all of them look like they're in Antifa? And it's because, well, the Starbucks fully implemented the race and gender agendas and the COVID vaccine agenda and the rest of it. And, you can go on down that list and run that same thought experiment for all these companies and come to the same conclusions.
That is really interesting. Okay, well, I'm not jumping necessarily to geopolitics, but I am like there are some connecting stories here that I think are worth touching on. So we covered this yesterday with CanCon, so we don't need to like run through it. But the EU enacting the new Russian sanctions, the bloc is targeting Moscow's banks, trade partners, diplomats. Brussels foreign policy chief has announced. And what's notable about this, just reiterating that I think I said yesterday, is that what is exempt from this list are Russian energy. So it says that Trump has been pressuring EU NATO members to hit China with sweeping trade tariffs due to its continued purchases of Russian energy. The U.S. Current administration is engaged in what the president calls a trade war against Beijing. And I was just trying to find the note in here where I think it's Rosneft and sanctions against Russia, particularly the rejection of Russian energy, have undermined EU businesses' competitiveness as they have tried to switch to more expensive sources such as liquefied natural gas imported from the United States. So I don't think it has the actual note in here, but I'm pretty sure it's Rosneft and Gazprom and Likoil, I think is the other one. Those are the three like really big, three of the largest Russian like energy companies, and they're all exempt from these sanctions, but they have to be because that's where the European economy is getting all this energy from. So it's, they can't cut off their own nose to spite their face as much as they want to.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit on DPH on Wednesday evening. The effectiveness of sanctions, they certainly weren't effective at the very beginning of the very brutal invasion, but I saw Trump's comments yesterday and then got in touch with John and Burning Bright and was like, we kind of missed an aspect of this on Wednesday night. And I was kicking myself because I try to pass everything through good twin, evil twin. And I didn't get down to one more level below what I was thinking on the sanctions. If they're sanctioning individual companies in Russia or Russian owned companies, that's not the same thing as sanctioning Russia. And we often conflate those two things that should be kept separate. We can go through this and then we can kind of come back to that point.
Yeah, this is the actual story. And I think I misspoke a little bit, but it was the EU sanctions came on the heels of US sanctions, and the US sanctions specifically targeted those two companies, Rosneft and Likoil. And these are two companies, or Lukoil, I think is what it's called. These two companies came out of the 1990s aluminum wars. So these are two of those companies.
How about that narrative arc completing?
Yeah, right. It's pretty great.
If the story you told about how these companies were privatized, then they attempted to give ownership of these over to the citizenry on some level, however much they wanted to participate. And then they sold out that ownership right back to the enemy, to the oligarchs. That story has to be understood now. And it would have to be, again, if there's justice in the world, and we would like to think that there might be, that would have to be resolved at some point. So the idea that it's being resolved 35, 40 years later, it's not the greatest, but I think that could be what we're witnessing.
Yeah. And then here's like a list of all the subsidiaries, because they're also, I think that's also probably the bigger thing, is they're going after all these subsidiaries. And I remember from digging in on this and trying to understand it, a lot of these oligarchs that are the presidents of these companies are the ones that like publicly opposed Putin when he invaded Ukraine in 2022. Deripaska being one of them. Deripaska, I think it's Gazprom that he's the head of, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, like these oligarchs are all the ones who opposed Putin, like some of them, not all of them. And then these are the guys who are being slapped with sanctions from Trump. And then the EU is following in behind him. So it is pretty interesting. And you make a good point, because the good twin, evil twin, there are people in Russia who probably don't support Putin and probably do support efforts to undermine what he's doing.
Sure.
And it seems like Putin has dealt with a lot of those people over the many years that he's been in power. But
you just have to think of it like the United States, right?
Yeah.
Not everything that happens here, just because Donald Trump is the president right now, is Donald Trump's doing. A lot of what happens here in the United States is antithetical to what Donald Trump wants. And we have to understand that when we're thinking about some of these other countries. When we hear about something terrible happening in China or in Russia or in Saudi or in Hungary, and those stories are being told to us so that we will place the blame for these terrible things on these leaders that the global regime wants to remove. You know, we have states like California and New York and Michigan and Illinois, these awful governors that are on television all the time that Trump's often talking about. I mean, California is essentially a communist state owned fully by the global regime. So how do we bring California back into the United States? You know, the idea that it's just one cohesive thing and we can talk about these things as this nation does this nation does this. The government in the nation is actually the controlling factor in that nation. I mean, none of that is ever true. Like, that's how we're told to think of these things, or taught to think of these things in our schooling, but that's not really how the world works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point. Well, so to round out this this narrative, this story, I want to talk about this article and then show a video of Trump from yesterday. But this says Trump's Russia sanctions could backfire, according to a former Biden advisor, and it's the name here that stood out to me because it's Amos Hochstein.
Oh, wow.
This is the guy who was like running around with met with MBS like 20 times when Biden was president, and he was pushing for, you know, from the Arab side, like a peace deal with Israel. And he was certain that we were going to get this done under Biden, and then we didn't. But he says Amos Hochstein, who previously served as the senior energy policy advisor under former President Joe Biden, told the Financial Times that the move might not have the intended economic impact. If prices, quote, if prices rise significantly, any revenue loss Russia suffers from reduced sales will be offset by higher prices, he explained. And if prices climb too much, Russia profits while American consumers and our allies end up paying more. According to the FT, to the Financial Times, Trump likely sees the sanctions as a less risky alternative to approving deliveries of Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. With oil prices currently below the levels seen during Biden's presidency, Washington appears to believe it has leeway to act without triggering a sharp domestic oil price spike, according to the article published on Friday. Commenting on Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed that as a major producer, Russia plays a crucial role in maintaining stability in the global energy markets, calling the current supply and demand balance beneficial to both producers and consumers. Quote, disrupting this balance is a thankless task, including for those attempting to do so, he said. Putin also warned that any use of Tomahawk missiles against Russia would provoke a truly staggering response. And then, so I want to play this clip of Trump.
Yeah.
Where Trump says, where is it?
I have it, by the way, too, if you need it.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have it? You want to share, share your screen?
Pretty sure it is. Oh, man. I just reset my computer
right
fully.
Here.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
I have it right here. Yeah.
Where's
okay.
it hiding?
Let's play this.
Go for it.
Thank you. President Putin basically said today that Russia is immune from U.S. sanctions. He said that it would not impact the Russian economy in any serious way. Is he
Good.
wrong?
I'm glad he feels that way. That's good. I'll let you know about it in 6 months from now. Okay, let's see how it all works out.
I mean, I love the shit-eating grin at the end when he says all that.
Yeah, I'm glad he feels that way. So Trump is glad that Putin knows the sanctions aren't going to affect him negatively.
Yeah. It's almost like the sanctions are only going to negatively affect the EU and NATO, who are then going to have to pay more money for the goods they're getting from Russia, if they get any goods. Because I'm pretty sure all these economists have come out and said, yeah, like we've already had like a decoupling between Russia and the West. So I don't understand why we think sanctions are going to continue. That's at least what like Russian economists are saying. I have no idea what the retards in London and New York are saying, but like the Russian economists are all saying, yeah, we've already done like a decoupling. So I don't understand why they think more sanctions are going to have an impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious to me, the dynamic that we just witnessed. He's doing something that is reported throughout the country as something that's going to harm Russia. And of course, people think of Russia being Putin. Putin controls all of Russia with an iron fist. Everything that happens in Russia is Putin's doing, just like everything that happens in America is Trump's doing. As we just went over, that's clearly not true. And so Trump is doing this thing that he knows isn't strategically meant to damage Putin. It's meant to go after particular companies who are probably, we can assume, aligned with the other side. And he's like, yeah. I mean, it wasn't intended to damage Russia or to damage Putin. So I'm glad Putin knows that it's not going to damage him. Like, I'm happy that the other side understands that we are both on the same page in the purpose of this.
It's like we're still bros. So I'm glad he knows that we're still bros. Okay, so we will come back to Russia, but I figured since we're already on the financial stuff, let's talk about this story from Breitbart, which is inflation cools more than expected. No signs of tariff pressure, because it mentions tariffs as well. Consumer prices rose less than expected in September. Government data showed Friday, clearing the path for further rate cuts from the Federal Reserve and suggesting that tariffs are not weighing on household budgets. The consumer price index increased 0.3% last month, down from the 0.4% in August. Economists had forecast a 0.4% increase. Compared with a year ago, consumer prices are up 3%, slightly below the 3.1% forecast. Core prices, a metric that excludes food and energy prices, rose 0.2%, while below the estimate for 0.3%. Over the last 12 months, core prices are up 3%. And I'm sorry if everyone's eyes glazed over as I read that, but very, very riveting information that I had to share.
Yeah, I was momentarily distracted by the headline over there to the right. I am coming for your seats.
I saw this. We're gonna have to read that next. We're definitely reading that next.
Sorry. Yeah. So inflation. Is it any coincidence that this story is coming out 10 days, 11 days before we have a series of fake elections that have narratives that need to be built to explain the results that are already decided?
That's a really, really good point. The timing of it is really interesting. And what's funny about the headline and because it goes on to talk about grocery prices is I was at a Halloween trunk or treat thing for my kids. And I ran into a bunch of people I haven't seen in a while. And all of them were super angry talking to me about how expensive groceries are now. And these are all the husbands who they're like, my wife comes to me and is like, we're ordering another cart of food for our 3 or 4 kids. And they're like, dude, how are groceries as expensive as they are? Can you do something about inflation? Like we need to fix this. And so it's hilarious that we're getting this data now, and maybe inflation is really coming down. Maybe it's not, but it seems like now more so than a year ago, people are way more aware of the inflation story than maybe even they were during the election campaign. And I think part of that is the MSM, the anti-Trump MSM, trying to bring it to everyone's attention because they're trying to pin it on Trump. But everyone understands that it wasn't Trump who caused this.
Yeah. Now you're getting the other side of it. I think that that's exactly the right observation. The other thing I'd say about this is it's important to know where the price increases are coming from. It's not all market forces, because we know that the markets aren't actually free. And so Trump keeps talking about oil prices coming down and oil prices coming down. And on one view, oil prices are coming down. It's just that the price at the pump that we see is not coming down at the same rate. And it's because there are a series of other factors. There are middlemen, there are individual state taxes and excise taxes and the rest of it that get added to that price. So the price that we see can be stabilized by the regime so that it doesn't come down, even though all of the costs, all the prices that would lower the price we see in a real economy are being totally hidden from us because they are one level further away. And of course, this is just another narrative manipulation tactic by the regime.
Yeah, and it's a callback too. It makes me think of the comment from Reagan about how this is going to destroy the economy and everyone's going to lose their job if we have tariffs. It's like
Mhm.
as if there was no such thing as economy or business
Yeah.
or commercial enterprise before there were transnational corporations, right?
Yeah. And honestly, tariffs are a tool that is used in a free market to that is leverage. And in an actual free market, you can use leverage. Leverage is part of the equation. And they don't want that to be the case. They want to have all the leverage defended by the American military worldwide so that countries stay within the construct that they have built.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's go ahead and pivot to this story, which I haven't read yet. I saw the headline right as I was starting to read it, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting headline. So now we have to.
What a headline this is. There's two major parts of it, both of them hilarious.
Says, I am coming for your seats. Exclusive. Scott Pressler says we must win in November or left will have gotten away with murder of Charlie Kirk. Wow. It says on Thursday's Alex Marlowe show, early vote action founder Scott Pressler, that's a hell of a name for an organization, talked about the 2025 elections. Pressler said if Republicans don't turn out this Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, the very people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination win. It says the Alex Marlowe show, hosted by Breitbart editor-in-chief Alex Marlowe, is a weekly podcast. Yeah, whatever. Wow. Early vote action. That is a purportedly, I would assume, conservative NGO.
Well, I think it's probably the thing that was started with his TPUSA money. That is what I would guess, but I can try to get some background on that.
Why don't you do that? I will do our next ad read.
Perfect.
Let me see. Let me pull this down. In our next ad read, we have Save Pulse. Today's show is sponsored by Save Pulse. Save Pulse is dedicated to keeping you and your family healthy with top quality medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, and hydroxychloroquine at unbeatable prices. The streamlined ordering process makes it easy to stock up on all your health essentials. And now with exciting news about fenbendazole showing promise in cancer research, they proudly offer this alongside antibiotics and viral care meds. Don't wait. Prepare for any health scenario today. Get your supply and stay ahead of the curve with Save Pulse. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds and use the promo code SAVEHEALTH at checkout to get a 20% discount on orders over $100. Please note, some packages have been held up in customs recently. All the packages that have been held up are now en route to their destination. So if you have ordered from them and it's taking a little longer to get there than normal, I think it's just because of customs and whatever's going on there. So thank you to Save Pulse. Everyone go check that out. All right. And while you pull that next thing out, we can pivot to the other kind of big domestic storyline that broke yesterday, which I haven't really dug in on, but it's kind of it's just an interesting conflation of different narratives or different ideas. And that, of course, would be the arrest, the Kash Patel press conference where he announces this, I guess it's like a RICO case of rigging NBA games. And the headline from Breitbart is Feds, games involving the Lakers, Raptors, Hornets, Trailblazers included an NBA gambling scheme. Members of an illegal gambling ring shared non-public information regarding the Lakers, Hornets, Trailblazers, and Raptors, according to the Department of Justice. The teams themselves had no knowledge of or involvement in the gambling scheme, but information about them was allegedly spread illegally to those wagering on their games. Those implicated in the sharing of illegal gambling information are Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and 49-year-old former NBA player Damon Jones. Both are among the 31 individuals arrested in connection with the sports rigging scheme or with illegal poker rings allegedly run by the mob. The scheme investigated by the FBI probe ran from January 2022 to March 2024. During that time, Rozier and Jones allegedly shared information on injuries and which players would be inactive for games. Jones, who is also a longtime friend of Lakers star LeBron James, allegedly told members of his ring on February 9th, 2023, that James was hurt and would not be available for the Lakers game against the Bucks. Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the information is out, Jones wrote, according to the indictment. This is really interesting. And it doesn't mention Chauncey Billups, but I know that from reading because we did a live stream, exclusive stream for GART yesterday afternoon, right after the story broke. So we were kind of talking about this, and I went and found the actual indictment and was reading through it. Chauncey Billups is at the heart of the whole thing. So that's hilarious. And it also named a number of Italian mafia people. And all of them, as they were named, the family that they work for. So it was the Gambino family, the Lucchese family, the Genovese family, the Bonanno family. So all the 5 families from La Cosa Nostra, which is the Italian mafia. They were all listed in that. And it was really interesting because this is kind of like a full circle of, the Gambino, the John Gotti Gambino thing from 30 years ago from Giuliani, the RICO case. That was the really first really large RICO case that we saw that Rudy Giuliani was a part of. Purportedly Donald Trump might've been connected to it from the Atlantic City perspective. So yeah. And then of course, the Italian mafia is connected to the Ukrainian mafia, the Russian mafia, and the Jewish mafia.
You might even say that there's just one big global Khazarian mafia. Yes. And the funny thing is that same organization is like the NBA and the global mafia don't seem like distinct entities, right? The NBA is one satellite organization of this larger organization. And we've kind of talked about that model a bunch today. That's how it seems to me. This all seems like a cover story for that. I mean, 30 years ago, I remember being in high school and watching the NBA. I was obsessed with Michael Jordan, a huge Michael Jordan fan, a huge Bulls fan. I would I remember browbeating my parents to let me stay up and watch the NBA finals during my high school final exams. And thank goodness they let me because it was awesome. But at the time, they would talk about the NBA having the refs call games in certain ways so that they could get a game 7. There's always been rumors, at least, about the draft lottery being rigged to create certain outcomes. We saw it in full just this past year as the Dallas Mavericks, for no reason, traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers, and in return for the Lakers' number 1 pick, which then became the number 1 pick overall, which then became this guy, Cooper Flagg. I think that's going to be really interesting to see that story play out this year because, of course, they want to send LeBron out with a championship. Then I think it was in 2007 or something. Tim Donaghy, the NBA referee, was caught in a gambling and cheating scandal. And then you cut to earlier this year, and Donald Trump brings out the Pete Rose story about 6 weeks or a couple months before the Pete Rose story actually happens. And you can kind of see all of this stuff becoming part of the same thing. And, who knows where this is headed next? I think it's an interesting story for certain. But at some point, we just have to understand that our professional sports are mostly televised soap operas, just like politics. And it is a rigged system.
Yeah.
You don't think so, though, right? You don't think that the games are rigged?
Well, no. I think you're 100% right about the games can be rigged from the perspective of paying off the refs, like the frozen envelope, that whole remember the frozen envelope during the draft where they purportedly froze the envelope and so it would fall to the bottom and then they would grab out the one. Yeah. So they're those kind of stories I think are very, very, very plausible. And then of course we know that the Kosher Nostra, the Jewish mafia, rigged the 1919 World Series. That was fully exposed as actually happening. The point that I was making to you during the conversation that we didn't really get to flush out before the show was the idea. I see people all the time making the allegation that the actual athletics that are conducted during the game are rigged. And that that is the thing that is being coordinated on like a movie script standpoint. And that's where I think you're jumping the shark a little bit. Like throwing a 75-yard pass and a guy running full speed and catching it, you can't really account for that from like a pre-planning standpoint. I mean, maybe there are instances where a guy can intentionally trip to give the other guy, like the full field to run and score a touchdown. But in terms of like a super athletic play happening in a moment, that's where I think
you could drop it on purpose.
You could definitely drop it on purpose. But like when the certain things happen, like Russell Wilson, for example, throwing the ball on like the 3-yard line during the Super Bowl a few years ago, and the Patriots picking it off on like the 3-yard line, like that to me seems like that was just like,
oh sure,
yeah, that was just bad play calling and like chance. But I know people like to think that was all orchestrated.
Well, the thing is, it becomes something of a sliding scale, right? Like there's the pure no influence, and then the other end would be total, complete control and influence. And you can see that somewhere in the middle are elements of control and manipulation. So then the question becomes, where is the midpoint between these two? And when does it become more controlled than not? I agree with you that like it's difficult to see how I think hockey would be one of the most difficult sports to rig. The referee part, very easy to rig. Always, yes. It always is in sports. And it's funny because over the years, as technology has advanced, the professional sports leagues have had to adjust the way they referee games because the fans at home can understand this or that happened. Flip side of that is, man, the NFL, for instance, has started looking completely like a video game. Do you see the interviews that they do with the coaches at halftime? Some of the touchdown celebrations and the rest, they use these 8K cameras now that have super high definition for the subjects of the interview, and then everything in the background, the crowd and the rest of it, all is blurred out to some degree. It looks exactly like video game presentations of 10 years ago that you might see on Madden. JB sent us a few weeks ago the Amazon Prime, the way they lay out the games, and maybe it would be fun to share that just to kind of blow people's minds. I think it is mind blowing. Did you watch that video?
Yeah. That's the one where they show the new camera angle, like the Madden camera angle.
They have some camera angles, but they also have information and analysis kind of layered over the broadcast almost in real time as it's happening. And it's because they basically have algorithms analyzing everything that happens on the field. We are into such a crazy place at this point. I mean, wait, hold on. Man, I really want to find this. And
no, it is worth watching, because I think you're right about that. That it's it is like, it does make it seem very, very surreal.
Here, let me. I think that this will be a good point at which we can start this. Here we go. And by the way, there was also this thing about the NFL, like the wide receivers' gloves being magnetized or overly stickied when we started seeing all those crazy catches from people like Odell Beckham Jr. Man,
the stick 'em on their glove.
Yeah, it's hard to not think that there might be more than what we're understanding. But anyway, so I hope that this is a good point in this video. But this is the video. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit here.
And this is supposed to be like live, like this is happening live, right?
Yeah. This is the Prime Vision broadcast that you can watch at home on the Thursday night games broadcast by Amazon.
You can already see here the offensive player in motion. They're highlighting some of the Cardinals defenders there and how they might try and defend this actual play. See the player in motion there. See the handoff to Walker. He's going to go that way. So we see who tackles him. We see the route he took. We can see everything from above. And by the way, this is not even the highlight version. Like I think they call it the Wildcat camera. This isn't even the tight version of that Skycam. There are now two Skycam angles. This is the higher one to show you the all 22 view. So instantly you notice this adds to the presentation. This is like watching literally a Madden game that you're playing. It's the view that we've all been accustomed to, right? Like watching the play from behind, having several players on the Cardinals highlighted here, from their safeties to a couple linebackers here, so we can see where they're at, right? And look at the spots on them. I mean, that's video game style that they have the circles superimposed on them, almost like you're controlling them from the joystick. So this is a very comfortable, very familiar view. Now, sometimes we're focused here on the offense and how they're aligning and what play they're trying to run and what routes their receivers and running backs are going to take. In this case, they're more focused here, right? 3rd and 6 on the Cardinals defense. They're down in this game. They obviously need a huge stop here in the 3rd quarter. So watch how, as I play it here, they're highlighting where they're at. The coverage prediction is zone. That's going to change to man. And then watch these two players right there blitz. Sam Darnold throws. JSN can't make the catch. But all of that happened so quick.
Like it's like the AI is figuring out what they're doing before they even do it.
Yes. And then if you think maybe they've had this for longer than we understand, I know that this is kind of getting out there and it's going to make some people uncomfortable, but I would bet that AI can operate on a play, the video of a play, prior to a replay being shown on television, and edit the video before it comes out onto the television. Could they move someone's foot from 1 inch onto the out of bounds line to 1 inch inside the out of bounds line, show that to the country, and then show it to even the football coaches and players? Man, the technology stuff and the level of importance that these things take on when you think about the betting, the fact that like all NFL teams are owned by global oligarchs and the rest of it. I mean, man, I'm a Steelers fan. Dan Rooney was named Obama's ambassador to Ireland during the Obama term. I mean, there's this just, there are so many levels to this, and they start getting really creepy and mysterious when you dig down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you say that, and you're absolutely right. Like here is Kash Patel on Fox News last night talking about this. The subline from the headline is crime families like La Cosa Nostra are accused of having ties to illegal gambling empires. And you have to remember that, you know, the mafia, these mafias controlled places like Las Vegas. I mean, they probably still do. Las Vegas was only made like family friendly, like in our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And before that, it was just like a mobster's paradise. You think about the location of Las Vegas, like geographically, you think about like the southern border and the trafficking operations and like all the things that were happening there. You understanding that La Cosa Nostra and Kosher Nostra, which is the Jewish mafia, were working together with the CIA in the 1930s, in the 1940s, to send weapons to Europe to fight to fight the Nazis. This would have been the OSS before the CIA, and then ultimately to Israel in the 1930s. They were sending them to Palestine, weapons to arm the Irgun and all these militias that became the IDF. All of that was being done, like the actual logistics were being conducted by the mob and the mafia, with the CIA kind of like supervising the whole thing. The proto CIA, like OSS, prior to its creation in 1947. And what's his name? Lucky Luciano was let out of prison and allowed to go back to Italy, like as a deal that was cut to help the CIA. Right? I mean, it's like this stuff is all directly connected, and it all has to do with gun running, drug running, human trafficking. The sports aspect of it is like you said, that's the public facing facet of it. But when you consider the hundreds of millions of dollars that are on the line, not only from the valuation of these sports franchises, but also the gambling aspect of it. Again, these mobs and mafias running places like Las Vegas. Las Vegas is now not just in Las Vegas. Las Vegas now has apps that you can download on your phone and bet on anything. And all of those gambling apps are owned by the casinos in Las Vegas and backed by them financially. So Las Vegas is now not just Las Vegas. It's everywhere. It's on your phone. You can gamble through the mob that owns Las Vegas. So yeah, I think all this stuff is connected, like you're saying, and this nationwide takedown that Kash Patel is talking about right here is connected to it. It was funny that he addressed, I just wanted to point out that he addressed, it says, Patel noted the gambling rings alleged ties to La Cosa Nostra and Gambino crime families. Members allegedly defrauded millions of victims, laundered proceeds through cryptocurrency, and rigged poker games with cheating devices. He says, quote, they had the protection of the mafia in New York around this country so that they could continue this scheme to fleece innocent victims of tens of millions of dollars. These individuals got in bed with La Cosa Nostra. We're talking about the athletes and 4 of the 5 major crime families in New York City to create gambling empires, to rob people of their money, to extort people, to commit acts of wire fraud, to rig games and poker games and basketball games just so they could make a few extra bucks. It says ESPN commentator Stephen A. Smith weighed in on the controversy. Quote, when you've got all these protesters that have been going out there and people who have been protesting against him and what have you, this man is coming. He's coming, and I've been saying it for a long time. To me, this is the latest nugget of evidence that we're talking about right here. That's not to question the legitimacy of the case, he said. Patel responded, saying Smith's remarks might be the single dumbest thing I've ever heard out of anyone in modern history. The FBI director maintained the investigation is far from over and said the cornerstone of his leadership is, quote unquote, follow the money. And that's a phrasing that we've heard many, many times before from anonymous internet posters. So that's interesting little decode right there.
Yeah. The funny thing about Stephen A. Smith, is that he's kind of been inserted into the political conversation by force. He seems to be just a propagandist on the television, and his field happens to be sports. But it's odd that Kash Patel and Stephen A. Smith are having a conversation, because Stephen A. Smith is controlled as can be.
Yeah. It is really bizarre. And this is something that started with Trump, like during his first term, where watching the TV celebrities, the TV characters, like interact with the political characters, like they're supposed to be in 2 separate venues, right? And then they start interacting with one another because of things like Twitter, and then like public commentary like that, where somebody makes a slight and then the other person decides to respond. And Trump is really the one who I think broke all those barriers down and kind of like walked on to the set of Days of Our Lives as the obnoxious WrestleMania guy and just started like pile driving people into the table. And all the people watching Days of Our Lives are like, wait, what's happening? I thought I was watching George Clooney. And and it's really WrestleMania.
I think that's a great way of describing it, by the way. I was on Truth Social yesterday, and the post is longer than this, but I basically said, what if everyone on the screen is in the show? And that's kind of the case. You know, I think politicians are TV characters. Celebrities are TV characters. These news announcers are TV characters. They're all just playing their parts in this grand reality show soap opera that we're all watching. And it's kind of like we just choose which parts of the soap opera we're interested in. And whichever part we really care about, we pretend that it's not part of the soap opera. Like if you're really into sports, you're like, sports are real. And if you're really into finance, you're like, finance is just markets. You can just go down. And politics, people think that elections are real. They will cling to elections being real so that the entire political soap opera doesn't break down in front of them. It is no different. So I used to be friends with one of the stars of General Hospital back in the day. And she would have these, she would go to these soap opera conventions where fans from around the country, people who are obsessed with soap operas, pay all this money to go to the soap opera convention and then get a picture with the soap opera star and get their pictures signed and have a little conversation. They believe these people are the characters they play on the television, and they'll pay lots of money to have these experiences with them because it makes the soap opera more real. And we can see that playing out in our day. I mean, that's what Turning Point USA conferences are. They are soap opera conventions where people who are obsessed with politics go pay a lot of money to network with the TV characters in the political arena. We are so far around the bend at this point. And, you know, it's not to suggest that none of it has any relevance, that none of it has any importance, or that we should disconnect from the thing entirely. But we do have to put it in a proper perspective.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, like I was thinking about when we were when we were watching the like that Amazon Madden view. You know, the thing about football that I think a lot of people are drawn to, and that people get so invested into it so much more than other sports, is because of the layers of complexity to it, like the layers of strategy. There often are, comparisons drawn between like the way football is strategized and played and the way that you would strategize like warfare, right? Because you have these set pieces as they're called. You know, in warfare, set pieces are you and I, you know, in the 1700s or 1800s are going to meet on a battlefield where we both understand this is the battlefield. You're coming in from this direction. I'm coming in from this direction. So I'm going to set my pieces on the battlefield here, here, and here. Then you're going to set here, there, and there. And then we're going to have this chess match back and forth. And once we reach a point where one side has the advantage of the other side will surrender. And then I will honor the decorum of the rules of European warfare, allow you to come surrender, let your army live, and then you will pay me whatever the agreed upon surrender penalty is, and then we will go our separate ways. Not too dissimilar, by the way, from like an NFL game, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like that's where I think a lot of people's attention gets invested, is like the complexity of strategy and warfare. And it's like you could take those similar concepts and then apply them to fifth generation warfare, apply them to the things that we talk about all the time. And arguments can be made that would be maybe a more productive way to understand, to use that same skill set or a similar skill set to understand the world better. But they want to put you in the sandbox and have you apply those layers of perception and discernment and reasoning and strategy to a game that ultimately doesn't really affect your life unless you're betting tens of millions of dollars on it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's if you have any domestic stories, let me know. But otherwise, we can kind of pivot to geopolitics and hit a few of those stories before we get out of here. Well, the first one that was actually kind of funny, that is not quite geopolitics, but I thought was funny, is Musk planning a robot army, according to the media. The Tesla CEO wants more control through a 25% voting stake and has defended a $1 trillion compensation plan. Elon Musk is planning to build what he has described as a robot army, Wired reported earlier this week, citing remarks by the Tesla CEO during the company's recent earnings call. The billionaire entrepreneur is said to be seeking greater personal influence over Tesla as it expands into robotics and AI. According to the report, Musk is pushing to increase his voting power in Tesla to around 25% and has defended a compensation package potentially worth up to $975 billion, arguing that stronger control is necessary as the company develops humanoid robots and AI systems. Musk reportedly told investors that his main concern is maintaining enough control over Tesla's future direction. He said he wouldn't feel comfortable building a robot army unless he has a strong say in how it operates. Not total control, but significant influence.
Well, that's reassuring. So he's not going to build private robot armies for evil billionaires in their mountain lairs. Is that what we should take away from this?
That's how I'm reading it. It's not total control, guys. It's just significant influence. That's pretty entertaining. Okay, and then we have just a few kind of goofy stories that I thought were worth cleansing the palate with. This one: EU state threatens to close their border over balloons. We have another balloon story. So we had the very successful poop balloon op from Kim Jong-un, which resulted in the South Korean president being thrown in prison for being a traitor, for trying to launch a military coup against his own government. Now we have Lithuania has alleged that balloons carrying contraband cigarettes have crossed over from its neighbor. Lithuanian Prime Minister Inga Reagan has threatened to close the border with neighboring Belarus. Lithuanian National Radio reported on Wednesday. She said the measure would be in response to an alleged flow of balloons carrying contraband cigarettes across the border, according to the public broadcaster. Quote, if such balloons cross our border en masse again, we will react immediately and close the border with Belarus. Reagan told journalists on Wednesday, according to LRT. She also reportedly expressed skepticism that Vilnius could sit down with this neighbor and reach an agreement on anything. Quote, there's currently no information that this is a coordinated operation by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. This is about smuggling contraband cigarettes, she added. So I wonder what this is about, because they don't really specify what kind of contraband cigarettes. I do remember when Joe Biden outlawed menthols for like 5 minutes at the beginning of the and then we had the alliance between the elderly women who smoked Virginia Slims and the brothers who smoked Newports. They were like, they came together in a really great like horseshoe theory moment.
We got to make one of those. We got to make one of those memes. But you take the white arm wrestling arm and replace it with an old lady's arm.
With a Virginia Slim.
Right. Or yeah, exactly. The what is it? Cool Newports and like Virginia Slims.
Yeah, cool Newports and God, what are the other? There's another menthol.
Camel Crush started making their menthol cigarettes. Yeah, you can get Marlboro menthols.
Dude, I had friends who love the Camel Crushes because they'd smoke the cigarette, and then at the very end they'd crush it, and they'd be like, "Just got to get that one."
Yeah. Make your breath feel clean before you move back on with your day.
Yeah.
This lady right here is another perfect example. So Burning Bright Night, I think it was Burning Bright Night, or maybe it was on Devolution with John. We talked about the color revolution. It was with John. It was last weekend. The women who are pushed to the fore in these color revolution operations in various countries, like they tried to replace Putin with Alexei and then Yulia Navalny, and they've tried to replace Alexander Lukashenko with that lady Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, and in Venezuela they're trying to get Maria Corina Machado, and in the United States they were trying to get Kamala Harris. They want a young to middle-aged woman who they can present as attractive and in touch with the popular culture. They want to push that person forward as the leader because that person doesn't read to the world as a dictator who would have seized power and then would govern in a totalitarian fashion. But that's exactly what these people are there to do. And you can just simply spot it. I mean, look at that picture. You can know what that is on your first visual notice, and then go back and do the work and find out, oh, yeah, she is that.
Yeah, there is that. God, who is that woman? Was she I don't know if it was Denmark or Norway or whatever. There was, like you said, she fit the mold of this young, very attractive. She became prime minister. I want to say it was Denmark, and she was like a total tyrant. She looked like cute soccer mom, or like, cute young beautiful woman. And then of course, like after being in office for a while and doing a bunch of terrible like Green New Deal stuff, communist agenda items, it was in like a scandal came out that she was like going to the club every night during COVID and just being, acting like a hoe. And it was I don't know, it was just like a really, really kind of funny, like full circle moment, because she did not seem at all qualified to be holding the position she was holding. And that was like the rallying cry to her is, young, beautiful women can be leaders of countries if we let them. And then it turned out she was actually just going to the nightclub and acting like a skank while her regime was like imposing communism on the country.
Wait, which one is this again?
This was God. I can find.
Was
she? She might have been Finnish. It might have been Finnish. It might have been Finnish. Yeah, she was one of the Scandinavian countries.
Yes,
Scandinavian countries. Yeah.
And Jacinda Ardern in Australia, same model. Like that model plays out over and over again. And it's weird because people are like, oh, it can't be like that. You gotta prove that before you can say it. No, you should assume that. That's how strong that pattern is. And if there is an exception to that pattern, fine, we can admit there's an exception. But that pattern is so strong. And I talk about macro patterns and stuff. When the macro pattern exists, you should assume that the macro pattern is correct until proven otherwise. You should not have to work your way to proving that, there might be this one exception.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely the case. And Shipwreck has been great about calling people out for that, for, really? The people who post, the attractive women who post like pictures of themselves while posting like the political commentary, and I'm talking about like the TPUSA adjacent people who are simping for Israel while posting like selfies of themselves on X. So yeah, like that definitely happens. Okay, so then we have this story. Moscow brands Polish foreign minister Osama bin Sikorski. I thought this was pretty funny. Poland's foreign minister deserves to be called Osama bin Sikorski after publicly endorsing what amounts to a terrorist attack on an energy route serving another EU member state. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Sakharova suggested on Wednesday. Her remarks came after Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski rebuked his Hungarian counterpart Peter Szijjardo for criticizing Warsaw's refusal to extradite a Ukrainian suspect in Germany's probe into the 2022 Nord Stream gas pipeline explosion. Sikorski said he was proud of Poland's position and added that he would welcome the destruction of the Druzhba oil pipeline, which carries Russian crude to Hungary. Yeah, so, just...
I like that name.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start calling him that. Osama bin Sikorski, I think, is that's going to stick for sure.
We should just call all sorts of people Osama bin and then their last name.
Yeah, I think that's going to become a thing. I think it definitely needs to become a thing. Okay, this story was hilarious. This is from a few days ago, but I think it's worth you and I talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
The IMF pushing Kiev to weaken their currency. Bloomberg. Ukraine's request for a new loan package could reportedly be in jeopardy unless it agrees to devalue the hryvnia, whatever their dollar's called. Hryvnia, thank you. The International Monetary Fund is pressuring Ukraine to devalue its currency in order to secure a new loan. Bloomberg reported on Friday, citing sources, Ukraine spends around 60% of its budget on the conflict with Russia and depends heavily on Western aid to cover everything from military costs to pensions. It secured a $15.5 billion IMF loan in 2023, but the program runs out in 2027. Last month, Kiev requested a new $8 billion package, but the talks have reportedly stalled over the currency issue. And if you have anything to say or commentary, I have something to pull up that
by all means
laugh at. So I went to the machine and I just wanted to ask. I was like, okay, I just, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, but I just needed to get clarity. If this thing will load, and maybe it won't. So I asked it. Come into focus. Come into focus. Enhance. I asked it, wasn't the IMF created in order to, so I said, so the IMF was created to prevent countries from devaluing their currency. Yeah. And it says, exactly. That was one of the main goals of the IMF's creation. That was with the Glass-Steagall Act of, I think it was 1933. But the IMF was basically created to help, to make sure that countries weren't playing games with their currency and weaken their currency intentionally. That was like one of the major, like regulating currencies across national boundary lines was like one of the main reasons the IMF was created. And then when they repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, they said, you know what? This one thing that came out of the Glass-Steagall Act, the IMF, is actually worth keeping. We should keep that. Everything else should go away with Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall did a number of things, including preventing commercial banks from taking grandma's savings and gambling with it on the stock market, which now they can do. But they said this one thing, the IMF should definitely stay. And that's basically the Iron Bank from Game of Thrones.
That's fantastic. I like that. It's also funny, the Mar-a-Lago Accord and Stephen Moran, who's in the Trump administration, that paper that he put together for the Trump economic strategy, overseen obviously by Scott Bessent, had to do with weakening the American dollar. So it's interesting that would be, have that dynamic with the International Monetary Fund.
Yeah, that is interesting. Okay, so we can hit one or two Middle East stories, and then I think we can do rants and wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we have the big story out of Israel right now is, let me share my screen. Israel would lose all support from the U.S. if it annexes the West Bank, Trump warns. VP Vance says Knesset preliminary vote on matter was very stupid political stunt and an insult to him, marring his visit. U.S. president predicts Saudi normalization this year, weighs intervening for Barghouti. So there's a lot of things that are covered in that headline, and I'll try to summarize them as much as I can. But JD Vance flies over to Israel. I think Rubio may have landed there this morning. And of course, Kushner and Wickoff have been there for weeks. But as JD Vance is in the air, I think we talked about it yesterday, flying there, the Knesset holds 2 different votes effectively to annex the West Bank and vote yes on both of them, so that when JD Vance lands, they've already said, oh, well, you're too late. We're going to go ahead and annex Palestine. What's really funny about that narrative, because this gets into our boy Yuhu, our boy Yuhu theory, is that Netanyahu in the Likud party, which is considered, the Likud party has long been considered like the far right party. They actually were against this move, and they were advocating not to vote yes on this West Bank annexation. But the further right parties, the parties that have, like these religious zealot parties, along with the leftist parties that hate Netanyahu, came together and voted yes on it in order to basically stick it to Netanyahu and say, well, we're going to do this because this is going to look really bad for you when Vance gets here. And so like even the people who might oppose West Bank annexation went ahead and voted yes on it just to stick it to Netanyahu. So I thought that was interesting.
It kind of, and this is what brought me to the position of our boy Yuhu, because otherwise I would totally agree. I mean, I understand your research and the rest of it, that there's a history of what seems to be great evil there. But you look at the controlled opposition dynamic in Israel, as you just described it. The left side of that, by the way, has been running a color revolution for years against Netanyahu, trying to strengthen their Supreme Court in the same way that they have. All right. In Brazil, that just kind of threw me off my thing there. But I would say then that the faction he's talking about there on the far right in Israel, as it exists now, is akin to our GOP establishment, the warmongers and neocons in that establishment who are pushing for forever war. And then you have Netanyahu somehow being the target from both sides of that dynamic, much the way Trump is the target of both sides here in America.
Yeah, and again, like, I think the theory is very compelling, and there's definitely where we definitely agree is that Netanyahu's Trump's guy, and that he's the guy that Trump wants in there, and it's very clear that there's also elements in the Israeli political spectrum who want all the things that Netanyahu ostensibly wants, that Netanyahu is branded as representing, but they are far more subversive about it. And some of them are even, I would argue, far more malevolent and evil about it than Netanyahu is, because you have guys like Bezalel Smotrich who are like, let's just starve everyone in Gaza. Like, I don't understand why we can't just kill all these people. Like why should they be allowed to live? And like Netanyahu would probably never say something like that, because he at least understands, human nature and how that's not going to play well politically. He's a more astute politician. So even if he thinks that, and I don't know if he does, he's smarter than to say something like that out loud. And to your point, I have a Benny Gantz post. So here is Benny Gantz that has come to represent in this dialectic, because I think that's what Trump has done a lot with a lot of this, is he's created these dialectics, much like the deep state. But deep state creates dialectics in order to control both sides of a conversation, advance an agenda, move the ball down the field, so to speak. I think Trump has created dialectics of his own. One of those dialectics being Benny Gantz versus Netanyahu. And I don't think he actually supports Benny Gantz, although he has made those comments in certain interviews that only air in Israel and do not air in the United States, where he's like, oh yeah, I love Benny Gantz. Like, I'm backing him. Benny Gantz has made it very clear that he wants war with Iran, and he wants like all the things Netanyahu wants. He just is willing to sign a concession, like sign a peace deal with Palestine for now, so that he can get a greater war down the line. And I think that's a far greater threat that we have to address and deal with. His post here says the nation state law should be amended only by a broad consensus government this week. At the opening ceremony of the Saban Center for Druze Warrior Heritage, I thought about all the Druze fighters who fell in the war and our commitment to them. We must admit honestly, both the changed government and the current government promised to amend the nation-state law and failed. Only in broad consensus government can we make the amendment. Only in a government composed of a coalition of 70 Knesset members without extremists can we enshrine the value of equality for our Druze brothers and every Israeli citizen, and at the same time preserve Israel as a Jewish state. A narrow government controlled by extremists has no legitimacy and no ability, and will not have. I think he means we will not have. And then the nation-state law that he's referring to is informally known as the nation-state bill or the nationality bill. Is an Israeli basic law that specifies the country's significance to the Jewish people. It was passed by the Knesset on July 19th, 2018, and is largely symbolic and declarative in nature. The law outlines a number of roles and responsibilities by which Israel is bound in order to fulfill the purpose of serving as the Jews' nation state. However, it was met with sharp backlash internationally and has been characterized as racist and undemocratic by some critics. After it was passed, several groups in the Jewish diaspora expressed concern that it was actively violating Israel's self-defined legal status as a Jewish and democratic state in exchange for adopting an exclusively Jewish identity. The European Union stated that the nation-state bill had complicated the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, while the Arab League, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the Muslim World League condemned it as a manifestation of apartheid. So interesting.
That is interesting. And if we can just pull this up for a second, this is the page for the new federal state of China. It kind of sounds like the same sort of thing. It's not the country as we've known it. It's this other thing. It's like what MAGA is. It's not quite Republican, and it's definitely not Democrat. We have this other thing. And I think that dynamic is playing out in a lot of these countries right now. So that I think is super interesting with the Israel thing. I mean, you could see that they have like their own logo, you know?
Yeah.
I am not for creating ethno states generally, or even like in any case. But if they are to exist, at least it would not be the global proxy regime or the global regime proxy state of Israel as it's now constituted. And I'll tell you, Bannon has said multiple times now, I think, that Israel as it currently exists isn't going to exist in 20 years. And I think that that's probably much further along than we are led to believe.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I think it was 2011 or 2012, Henry Kissinger said the same thing. He said he was asked about Israel in an interview, and he said, yeah, in 10 years, Israel's not going to exist anyway.
Wow.
So.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So, but getting back to this story from Trump. So the other things it says, here's the Trump quote from yesterday. He says, "It won't happen. It won't happen." Trump told Time, referring to the annexation, quote, "It won't happen because I gave my word to the Arab countries, and you can't do that now. We've had great Arab support. It won't happen because I gave my word to the Arab countries. It will not happen. Israel would lose all of its support from the United States if that happened." Trump had already ruled out the idea last month, saying, quote, "I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now." But the comments published Thursday were his most stern warning yet that he would not tolerate the move. Also, in the Time interview, Trump said he'd made Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stop the war in Gaza and that it might have continued for years otherwise. He also said he believed Israel and Saudi Arabia would normalize ties by the end of the year. And in this last little note where he says weighing, intervening for Barghouti. Barghouti is this Palestinian leader who has been in prison for many, many years in Israel. And Trump is saying somebody asked him about it in the press conference, and his response was, "It's funny you asked that. I was just confronted about that in a private meeting right before this press conference about doing this. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about leaning on Netanyahu to release this guy and send him back to Palestine, which would be a huge gesture in terms of the peace process." And so I thought that was really interesting. And I don't know if you have anything to add on the whole Netanyahu Rubio or Trump situation.
The vibe with Rubio looked, that was interesting. I mean, Rubio is a bit of a wild card as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Me too.
Before this year, I would have just said flat out, this dude is an establishment neocon. He's been loaded up with all these jobs by Trump. Trump is very complimentary to Rubio, as he is with all the members of his administration. So we're going to have to, I mean, I wish that there was something more definite to be said about it, but you just have to kind of watch the dynamic evolve over time. And then, you know, one of the really important things I think is worth remembering that kind of gets lost in the shuffle on a website like Twitter or whatever, we actually don't have to take strong positions on any of this stuff. We are not at a decision point where our one thing or the other has to be determined. So we can engage with a wide variety of possibilities and think about how strongly we align with any one of those, but we don't need to make a decision on whether Rubio is a white hat or a black hat and then try to reinforce that with every new narrative element that comes out. The vibe between these two guys was strange at best.
Yeah, it was. And Netanyahu citing days of destiny as Rubio arrives in Israel. Quote, now we face days of destiny. Netanyahu said, we still have security challenges, but I think we can work together. Rubio and several others have visited Israel over the past week, which the prime minister called a circle of trust and partnership between the U.S. and Israel. Yeah, very, very strange vibe. You're right about that. We'll have to wait and see. And yeah, Rubio has been like pushing for the overthrow of Maduro and like a number of things that are head scratchers.
Yep.
And then he's also ostensibly been helping Trump create peace in other places. So is it drafting? Is it maybe a hybrid strategy? I think
good cop, bad cop with Grinnell. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen some good cop, bad cop with Witkoff and some others. So I could be open to that interpretation. The other interesting thing is, you know, Trump just sent JD Vance there on the back of Rubio's trip over there. Why do we need all these people heading over to Israel? And when they make statements, who are they communicating to? And I think that these characters are actually there to translate the Trump administration hard and fast agenda to Republican establishment types, the neoconservatives and the rest of them. And I think that he's using these characters to make sure that they get that message. Actually, there's really not anything else that's going to happen. It's only going to be Trump's way. And I think that message needs to be delivered. The only other thing that I thought was strange was JD Vance having that big photo op yesterday at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Did you see that yesterday?
No,
dude, I would love to see you get into that little thing, because I think that is an interesting wrinkle and there's probably something under it.
Dude, that is really interesting. Yeah, because that church, I think, is connected. Like the Sepulchre thing, Matt has pointed out that there are Templar connections there, and that whole organization is connected to Prussia and Kaliningrad and all that. So yep. I do need to dig into that. I will look into that for sure. Yeah, and so we'll go ahead and hit rants. I just wanted to point out that story the other day, which was one of my favorite stories, when the reporter asked Caroline Levitt whose idea was it to go to Budapest, and she said your mom, which is a fantastic way of answering questions from the propaganda media. Putin then came out yesterday and said the Budapest location was actually suggested by Trump. So it was your mom and Trump who suggested that that it would be Budapest. And it sounds like they're now saying, even though it says postponed right here, Caroline Levitt came out and said, actually, we might still do it. It really is starting to feel like the 2018 Singapore summit between Trump and Kim Jong-un, where like May 24th, Trump came out and said, you know what, we have this summit in Singapore planned for June 12th, but Kim Jong-un is too fat and stupid to get along with. So we're going to cancel it. We're not going to go. See you later. Gets on Air Force One and flies on June 12th to Singapore and ends up just doing the whole summit with Kim Jong-un, even though he had officially canceled it on like the White House schedule. I wonder if that's what's going to happen here, where they're just going to be like, oh yeah, Trump and Putin aren't going to meet in Budapest. And then we wake up one morning and there they are in Budapest, like shaking each other's hand.
Love it.
Feels like that's what it is. And they also announced that I think it's the 30th, next Thursday, Trump and Xi are going to meet in South Korea.
Fantastic.
So we got Trump and Xi, we got Trump and Putin, and then MBS is coming November 9th, I think it is. Sometime in November, MBS is coming to the White House. So all the sovereign bros coming to hang out with Trump.
Yeah, we'll see what else he does on that trip. It would be surprising to see him only make one stop.
Yes. All right, let's hit the soft disclosure commercial, and then we'll read rants. Soft disclosure is... Sorry, this is not my StreamYard.
They say confidence starts with a smooth skin. And baby, soft disclosure lotion delivers.
I swear by this stuff. Like, I kid you guys not. This is the first lotion I've ever had in my entire life that, like, I don't get ashy after I put it on any part of my body. Like, my hands are always dry, and my hands have not gotten ashy without, like, rinsing them through water and washing them with soap since I started putting soft disclosure on. Like, it is black man approved. I kid you not.
Black man approved. You heard him. And let's be real. If it can handle his hands, it can handle anything.
Feet are like, they get so dry, like the heels of them, it'll just kind of like flake off. Like, but with soft disclosure, once you put it on, like it starts to absorb it.
Yeah, he went there. Don't worry, we won't show you his feet, but trust us, they're smoother too. Soft disclosure lotion is made with aloe, goat's milk, honey, and our exclusive oil blend that actually restores your skin barrier. Visit softdisclosure.com, use code BADLANDS, and get 15% off.
All right. Yep. Thanks, Soft Disclosure, Willow Wind Farms. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to GART. We're back to Cocoa Beach. Excited to see everybody there. A lot of people have reached out and said that they're going to be in attendance. They bought a ticket. Chris, look forward to seeing you back there in Florida. This was fun last time we went.
That was fun. Yeah. I remember that trip. That was a great trip. Maybe
we'll get another SpaceX launch at nighttime like we did 2 years ago. So
I have a feeling that'll happen.
November 6th through 9th, badlandsmedia.tv/events. Get your ticket or virtual ticket, and we will see you there. For rants, we have a few. We have Secrets, $20. Thanks, guys, for your time. Thank you, Secrets, for your support. Everyone, please hit the thumbs up. Crazy Boots, $20. Badlands meetup on Long Island. Take the LIRR to Farmingdale, 6 p.m., Dark Horse, Main Street. I hope I read that right, Crazy Boots. But yeah, hell yeah. Long Island meetup. The LIRR, I assume, is some sort of a causeway, highway, freeway. Villas, $34, $1. Speaking of NFL and truth in plain sight, have y'all seen ads during the Chiefs game for Subtropolis? Sure, let's just entice all the kids by glorifying all these underground cities. I've not seen that. Wow. I'm not familiar with that, but that sounds a little dark. Gully 45, $5. Remember, the NBA started the COVID-19 scam by shutdown by canceling their games in 2020. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It is true.
Yeah, and the NHL, they both stopped their games that first night. I think it was March 11th of 2020.
Man, that is definitely notable, and definitely aligns. Missed the date, Ghost. The date. I don't know if you're talking about Bravest. If you're talking about the Badlands meetup, I think they're saying it's tonight. They actually, Crazy Boots doesn't give a date. So he says Badlands meetup on Long Island, 6 p.m. So I'm assuming that's tonight. But and then the GART is November 6th through 9th. So all right, Chris. Well, I appreciate. Thanks for letting me join you today.
I'm joining you, buddy. You're running this program,
sailing this ship.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up?
I'll be on DPH with John tomorrow night, and I've been working on an article for the Substack for the last few days. I think I'm going to have it out this afternoon, but it's basically about how the entire system is founded on nothing.
Love that. Look forward to reading that. What's the movie for Tuesday?
What is the movie for Tuesday?
You also Scream, which was awesome.
Burning Bright. Okay, I remember him pulling it up. I always have to do like a mental inventory of the things that I thought about days ago in order to recall. Hold on one second. I will find this quickly. Damn it. I don't know.
Because y'all are talking about a few movies in chat, and you're like, "Oh, but we should do this on Story Hour," but I don't think that was the one that y'all picked.
Yeah, crap. I can't recall. I always will go back and think about it later and finally figured it out. But I basically check out of that whole mindset until Sunday night when I get back to watching the movies. So
for sure. Understood. All right, guys, we'll hit the thumbs up and we will see y'all this afternoon, 2:00.
Everybody in chat is saying Cool Hand Luke. That's the right answer.
Cool Hand Luke. That's
Thank you,
funny.
guys.
That is hilarious because the guys in the construction site for some reason used to call me Cool Hand Luke. That's a boomer thing though, because I don't really understand. I don't know what Cool Hand Luke even is, but
I think it's Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood. Well, I'll take that. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right, guys. Well, we will see y'all later on.
They say confidence starts with a smooth skin. And baby, Soft Disclosure Lotion delivers.
I swear by this stuff. I kid you guys not. This is the first lotion I've ever had in my entire life that I don't get ashy after I put it on any part of my body. My hands are always dry, and my hands have not gotten ashy without rinsing them through water and washing them with soap since I started putting Soft Disclosure on. It is black man approved. I kid you not.
Black man approved. You heard him. And let's be real. If it can handle his hands, it can handle anything.
Feet are they get so dry, the heels of them, it'll just kind of flake off. But with Soft Disclosure, once you put it on, it starts to absorb it.
Yeah, he went there. Don't worry, we won't show you his feet, but trust us, they're smoother too. Soft Disclosure Lotion is made with aloe, goat's milk, honey, and our exclusive oil blend that actually restores your skin barrier. Visit softdisclosure.com, use code BADLANDS, and get 15% off.